Welcome to the Shade Chronicles, an anthology-style podcast featuring short works of fiction and serial prose, specifically with a sci-fi and horror flavor. Your hosts for the podcast are Derek Leffridge and Lawrence Trokey.
Hi, this is Derek Leffridge, and I would like to welcome you to the Shade Chronicles.
Hi, this is Lawrence Trokey, and I also want to welcome you and thank you for spending your time with us. Instant Karma by Lawrence Trokey. Reginald Wheeler had lived a charmed life. Anyone looking at where he came from, what he had been given, and what he had accomplished due to his huge boost from his upbringing, social status, and financial considerations would have agreed this was one lucky bastard. He had never really known failure or true disappointment. Certainly he was sheltered from some of this by his parents and family. However, despite their efforts, you would have thought Reginald would have eventually run up against something that would have knocked him on his ass. That's just how life works, right? Not for Reginald. He always landed on his feet. Somehow he always managed to win. It wasn't that he was smarter or faster or stronger than anyone else. He was normal for the most part, his good looks and excellent health notwithstanding. He had no superpower or skill he would engage to help him get over the top. He was just lucky, extremely lucky. In 4th grade, he entered an art contest with the prize being tickets to a baseball game. Reginald really liked baseball, but he was not much of an artist. Still, his parents encouraged him to try. Even with their urging, Reginald procrastinated, waiting until the last possible minute to begin the project. He had to paint a fall scene which also contained a message of peace, the school's fall theme. He got out his paints and canvas, but before he could begin, his dog knocked over his easel and the paints. The paint splattered the canvas, and Reginald thought it was ruined, and there was no time to start over. He decided to submit the splattered canvas anyway, having promised his parents he would try, and he did not want to disappoint them. To his surprise, Reginald won. The panel of judges, the art teacher, a history teacher, an English teacher, and the school janitor, were impressed with the experimental approach Reginald used in his work. They all commented on the maturity and insightfulness of his design. Reginald couldn't believe he won, but from that moment on, he knew he had life dicked. He achieved every goal he set for himself. He always got the job he interviewed for, whether he wanted it or not. He never went to prom or any social function by himself, and never with a group. His date would always be the cutest girl in the school. He got his own car at 16 years old, not an old beater or used car, but a brand new one, shiny and cool. The future was bright for Reginald, but the here and now was pretty sweet too. His streak would go on well into his adulthood, until that fateful Friday. Now, normally, the universe doesn't give a shit about you or me. It just keeps on expanding and spinning galaxies like an old vaudeville plate spinner. The intricate systems it maintains and the immense power it regulates is unimaginable. So to think that it would take any time at all to worry about the mundane details of anything so insignificant as the worries and fears of a human being on a tiny speck of a planet in a non-distinguished galaxy that's one of billions, well, surely you can see how ridiculous it would be. Except, every once in a while, once in a blue moon, so to speak, when an imbalance presents itself, like the extraordinary life of Reginald Wheeler, and his good fortune as in comparison to his fellow beings in the universe, well, that gets the universe's attention with gusto. As a matter of fact, as rare as it is, when the universe did notice Reginald's extreme good fortune, it knew it had to do something quickly to make up for the years of missing the outlier's good luck and great timing. Reginald Wheeler was about to undergo the universal equivalent of a stock market correction of biblical proportions. It started with his alarm failing because the power in his luxury condo had gone off in the night due to a freak explosion of a transformer nearby. When he woke up, he realized the problem and quickly got ready for work. Today was supposed to be his day, the day of his promotion to senior partner. Today's promotion would set the course for the rest of his life, so it was a pivotal day. He could not be late. A coffee stain on his shirt later, he had to settle for a stale Pop-Tart for breakfast instead of his normal energy smoothie since his power was still out. He charged his phone in the car as he made his way to the freeway and on to work. The drive would normally take about 20 minutes, but not today. Oh no. The universe made sure of that. First, he got stuck behind a school bus in his neighborhood and had to endure every stop it made until he could get to the main road. Then an accident had traffic backed up as he made his way to the freeway entrance. Figuring he could make up some time on the freeway got him pulled over by a speed trap. The universe was starting to enjoy this. A speeding ticket later found him finally pulling into the covered garage of his firm. Trying to pull into his reserved spot, he found an unmarked van blocking his way. The frustration of the morning was taking its toll on poor Reginald. Having never really experienced aggravations like this before, he didn't have the proper coping mechanisms in place to deal with it. There was no circuit breaker, learned through experience, to keep the emotional response to his vexations in check. At first, he blasted the van with a barrage from his car horn. It had no effect. He put his window down and yelled at the van, "You're in my spot!" That too went unnoticed. His anger now at a boiling point, Reginald flashed his bright lights at the van so vigorously, it looked like the van was on the dance floor of a disco. Still nothing from the van. Then Reginald snapped. The universe held its breath. He burst out of his luxury sedan in full rage mode. The guy behind the wheel of the van was casually smoking a cigarette, unaware of the hurricane about to descend upon him. Reginald stomped to his door, grabbed the handle, and yanked the door open to confront his victim. The driver turned his head to face Reginald with little to no concern. "You shit jerk face! You're in my spot and I need my spot now." Having never really cursed anyone before, Reginald's insult was a little clunky. The universe chuckled. "Oh, am I?" responded the driver. He slowly stepped out of the van and Reginald realized he was twice his size. The work overalls the man wore barely concealed his muscular frame, especially in the area of the sleeves, which seemed to be stretched tightly around the man's arms. He gave Reginald a push to back him off a bit, and Reginald could feel the power of the man's strength. Still, Reginald was not used to being confronted in such a way, but he was most certainly accustomed to getting what he wanted from the people he considered inferior, socially and economically speaking. Reginald got back in the man's face. "I want to know who you are and who you're working for. They will get a full report from me on your rude behavior and lack of cooperation." Before Reginald could finish, the man laid Reginald out. The universe winced at this. The man looked over his handiwork as another man approached. "What the hell did you do?" the second man asked the driver of the van. "This guy got in my face all mouthy and shit. He had it coming. Did you forget we're on a job here? We can't have this kind of attention. If the cops show up, we're screwed, you moron." The second man, also in work coveralls, scratched his head trying to figure out what to do. The driver had a thought. "Why don't I put him in the trunk of his car? Then we finish the job and get out of here." "You're such a fucking meathead," the second man shot back. "He saw you in the van. When he wakes up and gets out of the trunk, he'll go straight to the cops. Then we're made. We got to take care of him now. Put him in the van." The driver did as instructed. He laid Reginald on the floor of the unmarked panel van next to a rolled-up piece of carpet. The men got in the van and then drove away. They exited the parking garage and got on the freeway. Reginald slowly regained consciousness. The pain in his jaw was intense. He realized he was laying on the floor of a van next to a piece of rolled-up carpeting. He wasn't sure how he got there, but he did remember the giant asshole with the van and put it all together. The guy in the van kidnapped him. He laid on the floor of the van and tried to take in his surroundings. Then he heard the two men talking in the front. "So we take the bodies to the airport to the usual dumping place?" the driver asked. "That's how I figure it. We need to pop the fresh one, though, before we dump them. You got the silencer with you?" The driver nodded. "It's in the toolbox next to this saw." Reginald gasped. So did the universe. These two thugs were going to kill him and dump his body somewhere at the airport. They mentioned bodies, and that's when Reginald took notice of the rolled-up carpet next to him. He slowly crawled to the end of the roll and looked inside. It was dark, but he could make out the glassy doll-like eyes of the corpse inside, staring into eternity. With a hole in his forehead the size of a quarter, a small trickle of blood slowly rolled down the corpse's face. Reginald gasped again. The universe did not. It knew it may have gone too far with Reginald in trying to set things straight. After all, Reginald may have been very fortunate in life, with tremendous advantages that most people on the planet did not have. But it wasn't comfortable with visiting this much adversity on him. It had gone too far and needed to right the ship, it thought. The van pulled into the airport-covered garage and drove to the end of the building, near the entrance to the shipping area of the airport, where trucks unload cargo to be sent by air. After they checked in at the security gate with their fake credentials, they drove to the dock area. The van went unnoticed for the most part by the other workers in the area. The van parked in the last of the spots in the dock area, conveniently away from other trucks and vans unloading cargo. Reginald knew he had to do something now or he would never get the chance again. He jumped up to the back doors of the van, worked the handle, and opened the doors. Without looking back, he ran as fast as he could into the warehouse. "Shit, you see that guy? Let's go!" The second man shouted at the driver. They exited the van and ran after Reginald. Reginald ran into the warehouse looking for a place to hide. He saw a large wooden crate, which looked big enough for him to hide inside, so he went to it. He opened the shipping container, hoping he could climb in before the thugs caught up to him. Getting a splinter while climbing into the large wooden crate, he did manage to cover the crate just as the men entered the warehouse. They spread out looking to see if Reginald was hiding somewhere inside. They put their guns away so as not to draw any attention to themselves from the airport workers who were going in and out of the warehouse loading planes. They went through the warehouse once and then met back at the entrance from the connecting hallway from the loading dock. "You see the little shit?" the driver asked. "Nope," replied the second man, and then said, "Look, we need to take care of the first package before it gets too late. Let's go back to the van and do that. Then come back here and find him. He can't have gotten far." Reginald breathed a sigh of relief since he heard their conversation from inside the box. They were going away, which meant he could escape. However, the universe didn't see it that way. It figured it had done enough to set things back on course. Time to get back to the plan. Reginald was about to exit the container when he heard the lid slam down firmly in place. Then the box started to move. He tried desperately to open the box, but he could not. The box continued to move until it was set down somewhere. Reginald still could not open the box, and he started to panic. Then he felt movement again. But this time it wasn't just the box moving. He felt like the box was in something else much bigger, and that was doing the moving. He realized the container was loaded on a plane, and he was now en route to some unknown destination. He used the light on his cell phone to scan the box's contents. They appeared to be dry goods and supplies for someone camping somewhere. There were some hand tools, too. He thought about using them to break open the box, but he was too scared to try. After the day he was having, he did not want to tempt fate. The universe smiled at this thought. He fell asleep in the box, having decided not to break out. He did not know how long he slept, but he was sore all over from sleeping in the cramped space. He snacked on some of the goods in the box to satisfy his hunger. He hadn't eaten anything in a long time, it seemed. A loud noise startled him, and he started to panic again. He didn't know what the noise meant. Were they landing the plane? Had they already landed and now they were unloading? Unfortunately for Reginald, neither was the case. The plane was a cargo plane flying over a remote part of the Congo in Africa. It was dropping supplies to a group of Christian missionaries who were trying to reach out to a small tribe of the Mai Mai people, a group known for violent tendencies and cannibalism. Reginald was in one of 3 crates being dropped to resupply the missionaries. He figured the airdrop part out when the sudden sensation of falling came over him. It lasted several seconds until he felt a jerk that slammed him into the floor of the box. The parachutes attached to the cargo box deployed to keep him from smashing into the ground of the field it landed in. The landing was quite jarring, but Reginald survived. It did dislodge the box's lid, which allowed him to leave the box. He found himself standing in the middle of a field with tall grass that came up to his knees. He saw in the distance a tree line and what appeared to be a campsite. He figured his luck must be turning. He managed to escape being killed by the thugs, and now he was going to be rescued by the folks in the campsite. With any luck, he'd be back home soon, and he'd be able to put this whole terrible experience behind him. He entered the campsite, but something was not right. There was a fire in the center of the site, and a cast iron cooking tripod, which held a black pot with a lid. Reginald looked inside the pot and realized it was full of freshly made stew. But no one was around to tend to it, and no one was in the camp to eat it. He saw a journal lying on a table under the tent near the campfire. He picked it up, hoping to find a clue to figure out where he was and why the camp was empty. He started with the last page that had an entry. Fortunately, it was written in English. It was dated yesterday, and it read, "We are still waiting for a response from the Mai tribe. We were hoping to have their answer about receiving our evangelists so we could present the gospel to them. It is understandable it would take the tribe some time to consider our request, given that we are asking them to give up a past of violence and cannibalism, which is so heavily ingrained in their culture." Reginald stopped reading there. Cannibalism? He was stuck in some remote forest surrounded by cannibals? The universe, if it could, would have high-fived itself just then. The last sentence of the entry caught his eye, and he read it slowly. "We found discarded bones on the trail to the Mai village that appeared to be fresh. We must consider our friends lost. It's only a matter of time now. God help us." As he put the journal down, Reginald could hear in the distance the pounding of tribal drums. The universe dusted off its proverbial hands and then went back to spinning galaxies.